This is Julian, and I'm here with Teal Swan. In case you missed the last video we did together, I'll put a link to it here below, as well as a link to her new book, The Completion Process, which I highly recommend checking out as well. And it goes deep in terms of shadow work, and I thought we could just start with that here. What is it?
Okay, shadow work. For thousands of years, consciousness has been compared to light. So what is the opposite of light? It's shadow. That means the shadow is basically the unconscious. So when we're using the word shadow work, what we mean is we're working with the unconscious mind. We're working with the aspects of ourselves that we don't know that we don't know. So every child that's born is subject to socialization. This happens in every social group. Basically, the social group has an idea of what is a good thing and what is a bad thing, what's acceptable and what's unacceptable. We're a social species, so what we want more than anything in the world is that connection. We want to belong somewhere. But if we have a group of people saying, to belong and to be close to me, this is what I have to see in you, basically, we start to become very threatened by the aspects of ourselves that are not accepted by the social group. And so what we do in order to be loved is to basically hide all those aspects that are unacceptable as far as we can possibly distance ourselves from them, so that we don't admit that it's even a part of us, so that our personality is essentially being taken in by the social group. But this is part of the isolation that almost every person on earth feels, is that we all know that we disowned an aspect of what's really us in order to be a part of people's lives, shall we say. And so it's almost like we're all hiding the aspect of us that we think is really, really negative. It's the Jekyll and Hyde complex. Most of us are Jekyll that have always been hiding the Hyde.
Yeah.
And we don't want anyone to see it. So it's the process of socialization that creates the subconscious mind.
Yeah, this is really what drives us too, in terms of feeling like we're not enough and just only being, pushed by scarcity and seeking completion versus assuming we're already complete. It's like we're looking for that aspect that we suppressed or repressed, and then we forgot we even suppressed or repressed it.
Yep. And that's what makes it so challenging. When you're dealing with subconscious, you're dealing with what you don't know. So when you say, well, become conscious of what you're unconscious of, it's a big question mark for people. That's why it has to be such an exploration, and it feels a little bit like fumbling around with your hands in the dark.
Yeah.
So you have no idea what you're going to find there. That's what makes shadow work the next level of spiritual practice, because it's like you're venturing into a place and you don't know what the hell you're going to find.
And it's extremely terrifying too. Like probably
Yeah.
the scariest thing you could ever do, because that's the stuff, as you mentioned, like you just absolutely hate or are terrified of, and that's why you put it there in the first place. And it's been growing over time, because it's still like running there. So how would you go about, say, pulling that up? A big thing I know you talk about is like going through the pain versus running away from it.
Yeah. There are tons and tons and tons of different processes that people use for shadow work. My favorite is to use emotion. So a lot of times it's in our emotional reaction that we actually have access to the aspects of ourselves that we've suppressed. So let's say you're walking along the beach with your buddies, right? And one of them does something, and for some reason what he does just makes you so damn angry, but you don't know why it's making you so angry. That reaction right there is your key opportunity. Instead of trying to change the situation externally so you feel good, and instead of, walking somewhere else to distract yourself from it, what you do is you sit down with the discomfort and you ask, where is the root of this coming from? What is it about? So you start questioning. It's basically this internal questioning. And that questioning acts as like a little bit like a fishing lure that starts pulling these aspects up into the conscious mind. Yeah.
I love that. So yeah, so taking perspective whenever it hits you, like whenever you have that like emotionally just charged reaction. I like anger, but it could just be anything too, like fear.
Anything.
One that I encountered a lot with teaching success with women is any kind of extreme anxiety, or like that fear of rejection, where logically it's like consciously you're like, well, it doesn't make sense, but then it's like subconsciously something is there, and until you actually dive into that and like find out what it is. I mean, I see people just going through the same motions, like having that same anxiety over and over and over again, just not knowing why.
I can't remember whether it was Freud or Jung, but one of the two said that anxiety always means that there's something in the subconscious mind that is wanting to surface to the conscious. And I 100% align with that philosophy.
Yeah, no, same. And yeah, not falling into the trap of just seeking, as you said, either an escape. But what I found too is that the obvious ones are, for example, going for a drink or doing like any kind of entertainment, social media. But some other ones is seeking solutions and just using that as the escape. So, for example, you have anxiety. Instead of asking yourself, why do I have anxiety? It's how can I fix this anxiety?
Yep.
And then that's the escape. It's like the journey of finding those solutions instead of getting to the cause of it all. I think the other scary thing too, pulling up whatever's in your shadow is that fear that as soon as you let a little bit out, everything will just flush out. Like you've spent so many years holding it down and making sure it stays down. You're like, well, all this work that I'll have to redo all of that, and then it'll all come up. Like that was a huge one too.
Really?
For me especially. Like I only started getting into this probably a year and a half ago after going through this media fiasco, and I was asking myself, like, how did this happen? Because the pattern I started seeing in my life is I would build up to a certain level of success, and then at some point I would just destroy it. And It was funny. It was like when I started thinking about it, it's like, why am I doing this? It was something like, from my childhood, but I was like, it motivated me to build success, but the only purpose was to pop it and kind of experience the whole dramatic fall and find importance in that. I realized that the identity that I would buy into, in a way, and it sounds weird to say this, was that of the quote-unquote bad guy. Mm-hmm. Totally unconscious. And I traced that one back to like movies as a kid. I'm like, oh, the bad guy's so cool. And just that, somehow, I'm like, whenever things got too good, I'm like, no, the bad guy never succeeds in the end. And that's like what would trigger it. It was interesting.
So oh God, I love that you did that, because I actually have an exercise I do with people where they have to admit to what movie character are. It's like the one that you are, you watch the movie and you're like, that is completely me, like to the scariest degree. And you have to admit not only to the ways that it benefits you, but the ways that it limits you. I was doing that the other day with myself, actually.
Who were you?
And I realized that I'm like the type of the heroine. And what did I realize about the heroine is that, like, because you can't just have some parts of that. The subconscious mind takes all of it.
Yes.
So it's not like you can be a bad guy who succeeds, right? So the negative aspect of the heroine is that she's always alone. There is no way to maintain relationships. It's almost like they kind of fall away, and she's always just at the end sort of alone on a cliff, So I'm like, oh, okay, this is showing up in my relationships over and over and over again. But yeah, like the personality that we identify with becomes as much a limitation as it is a benefit to us. And the entire personality, in fact, is set up as a methodology of coping. That's what the majority of people don't want to hear, because we want to believe that we are who we think we are. But most of who we are is, in fact, just manufactured to cope with whatever scenario we were brought up in. So this is shadow work. This is one style of shadow work. So if you had, like, just out of curiosity, because it'd be fun, because people who are watching this could do this with themselves. If you were a movie character, who would you be? Like one specific movie character.
I have this specific one in mind. It's super cheesy. I traced this one back to, again, like identifying with the bad guy. It was a movie that I saw as a kid. It's so cheesy. It's George of the Jungle. If you ever saw that movie? With Brendan Fraser. Anyway.
Oh, I actually loved that one.
The movie's awesome, but the coolest character I remember seeing as a kid was like the bad guy in that movie. So it's like the bad boyfriend to the girl who ends up going with, George. And I was like, wow, that guy's really cool for some reason. I don't know. I'm just like...
Well, let's do it right now. We're going to do some shadow work so we can explain to people how to do it. Ready? I want you to think back to that character, and I want you to basically tell us what aspects you loved about him.
I'd say... that's interesting. Okay, first of all, super weird to say this, like the style / kind of look of the guy. Actually, weirdly, unconsciously, like that he wasn't like your typical like tough guy. He was kind of like the dick, kind of effeminate with like the tough guy, like bodyguards type thing. And
what was he instead?
And that he didn't, and the fact that, again, that whole like sabotage, that he didn't get the girl in the end. Like I would have hated him if he got the girl.
Why?
I don't know. It was just always like that. It's like the guy who doesn't get the girl, and then there was like that ripple effect. Like as a kid playing toys, I'm like, I always want to be the bad guy and like build it up, and he doesn't get it. Or the movies that I would love is if everyone... Huh?
So let's go further. What would be so bad about getting the girl?
I guess it wouldn't be as dramatic. It would feel too cliche. Like I don't want to be like everyone wants to be George or the hero. So I guess I found that important standing out. Like I'd be just as successful, but I do my unique twist at the end.
Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, younger sister, younger brother.
And what was their role in the family compared to you?
Uh, well, if I played like for example toys with my sister, she was always like the nice ones. Like she was like the classical like nice guy, the one everyone would root for.
Yeah, so there you go. So like the identity is already trying to cope with the fact that somebody else is the good guy.
Mm.
You
Yeah,
see?
yeah. No, it's true. Yeah, and that would just like ripple effect. Like it's so weird. Like the movies I'd like are the ones, for example, there was one that was like it was a bad movie, but I loved the fact that it's called like Open Water, where it's like people are lost in the water. Super fucked to say this, but the fact that they don't get saved in the end, like I was like, whoa! Like they defied like all the other movies where it's like everything's happy at the end. I don't resonate with that as much now because I kind of pulled that up and like went through, but I was like, that's what's running me. And like whenever things were just going too well, I'm like, it can't be like the happy ending. Like unconsciously, consciously I wanted it to, but there's somehow something like I do something a little too far to just push it. Like how, and it was always like going out in glory. I didn't want it to be like a oh, whatever it all falls apart. It's like how close to the sun can you fly until you end up burnt type of thing. It was weird, yeah. So that's that was what's has been driving me since I kind of started getting into this. And the other thing is I couldn't, what held me back to it, and I realized this, is I couldn't think of any other way to be motivated unless it was by this. You know, it's like if it's not for, say, the glory at the end, or if it's not coming from a place of like scarcity or incompletion, I couldn't fathom being motivated by already being complete or already being happy. And that's why I kind of hang on to it. I'm like, if I drop this, what's going to keep me moving forward type of thing. So yeah, those were the two interesting ones I kind of went through. Yeah.
Okay, so knowing that, I mean, people can get really along with that. They can basically go into every single aspect that they love about the person, but also on the flip side, what are the negative aspects that inevitably come along with this movie character? You've already identified one of them. Nothing's going to work out for this person.
In the end.
Yeah.
Throughout, though, it's like, that's the interesting part, is there has to be the build-up. So you can't just be like at the bottom, and then at the end it's like, okay, nothing happened. You have to be like so close to success, and just at the last minute, pop it. Yeah. So I'd say, yeah, the negative ones is, it's going to mess up in the end. You're going to self-sabotage along the way. Even along the way, there needs to be like these little dramatic bumps to keep it interesting. And it's one of those things where you kind of prevent yourself from learning different lessons. Because if you learn them, you succeed at the end. So you block it off. Even though like, this is the lesson, you just cut it off.
Another one is everyone's against the bad guy.
That too. Yeah, that too. Everyone's against it. And the bad guy likes it in a way. Like deep down inside, you're like, it's weird. Yeah.
Why? Why do you like it?
Importance. Yeah.
So this is what happens. So from a standpoint of somebody that understands shadow work, this is how this gets set up in the subconscious mind. You're a child who has a sibling who is the better child, basically the favored child in the family. They're the one that is the good one. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is that you lose your capacity to get positive reinforcement. And so your only way of gaining significance in somebody's life is to have issues and to be the bad one and to be causing trouble. What we found out, the psychologists have found this out and have known this for years basically, is that children, if they cannot get positive reinforcement, will go for negative reinforcement every time. Anything is better than being ignored.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I wouldn't say necessarily like the good one. Like we were both like viewed as good, but I guess my way of just being a little bit better would be to do that. So it was, in a way, it was coping. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's true.
So when you have that reaction, this is the kind of reaction we want to watch, because when you had that reaction in your energetic field, there was a defense mechanism that came up when I said that the sister was the good one. And so when we feel that, if we can tune into our body enough, we can feel that defense mechanism and realize that there is somebody behind that defense mechanism. I think it benefits us basically to see ourselves as composites of personalities. So like we're not just one person.
Yeah.
We are a being that we call by our name that has about 1 million different identities inside of us. Like everybody has multiple personalities. It just becomes a disorder when you suddenly flip from one to the other and they don't remember each other. But like so if you can think about all your reactions as potentially coming from one of your personalities or one aspect of you, then it becomes really fun to do this kind of shadow work where you feel that defense mechanism and you say, okay, so who felt like they needed to defend the fact that we're both good?
Yeah, you're right.
So and then we start going near that. And maybe the suppressed truth is there is an aspect of us that actually did not feel like we were good back then. So like that's the perfect example of what shadow work is.
That's what always pushed me to go for more and more and more. Because I'd get numb to like the little bit of drama, and that's why I'm like, I want to, because I'm originally from Switzerland, I'm like, I'm going to move to Los Angeles. I want to get recognition. I want to be famous, whatever it takes, and then pop it. Then I want to be even more famous and pop it. More, it's like, yeah. So it does push you for success, but it's coming from that, place.
When you pop success, what is the reaction you like getting from people?
I would say they don't get it. Like the fact that they're confused by it. It's like everything's going so well. Why would he do it? It's like a gratuitous pop.
You know what I think? It feels like revenge to me.
How so?
It like basically the energy of it is like, hang on with me and you're gonna like where I'm going and you're gonna like where I'm going. Now I'm gonna throw you off the cliff. Like it's like there's a little bit of this there,
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, I always thought it was more so like just importance, like something like that just shocks, like where you just not expect it, and everyone's just like, whoa, like why would he do this type thing, and then.
But why do you like shock? So like you can go even deeper with that. Why do I like shock? What is it about shock that makes me feel good?
That's something that was like the other one I was thinking about, because I did that. I do the shock thing like with the pop at the end, but then I trace it back, like I did it with my marketing back in the day. I did it with everything. It's like shock, 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 shock.
Why do you like that?
I'd say, again, sense of importance, sense of stands out. Like I thought, I'd say, yeah, it gives me a sense of like uniqueness in a way, because no one really does it. So it's like I'm the only one who would. So people are like, whoa, like, yeah, sense of importance, uniqueness. Yeah. And unpredictability. Yeah, it's kind of like that. In a way, too, there's a little bit of that fuck you, that little bit of unpredictability, importance, and a little bit, too, of being a martyr subtly.
Yeah.
Where it's like, why would he do that? Type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. But yeah, it was funny, like, yeah, digging into that, and again, it's like, there's still a lot more to dig into. It's like an endless process. But that's when I started really noticing, like, significant, lasting changes. Because the other ones always just short term, and it's like, next fix. And yeah, that was like probably the thing that changed my life the most, like these past, year and a half or so. Here's another one too. So there's that fear of going into the pain. And then the other fear I experienced is when you do this, there's that other thought, like, also unconsciously that it's going to work. And that you are, for example, going to let go of this bad guy or whatever self-concept. And then the fear is, well, if I let go of this and people know me as this, will they still like the new me? It's like they're so used to this character, this identity. What happens if I do become the good guy? And then like being okay with the fact that you are going to lose a few people who can only identify or resonate with that. But then in the long run, you'll meet people who like you better overall, or like who you connect with too on that same level that you're then at. Yeah.
It's exactly what we said to begin with. You develop the capacity to suppress this aspect because of the fact that you need to be accepted in the group. So inevitably, if you re-own aspects of the unconscious, you are going to lose the social group. Like, I would love to beat around the bush and make it more sweet and be like, no, you are. You're going to lose them. This is what's going to happen. And the only people that are going to be able to hang around afterwards are the ones that actually handle the totality of your integrated self.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, and having the like that inner trust too, that you will meet new people that you resonate with, just as good, if not a lot better than the people now.
Well, usually the trust isn't good enough. Usually what I notice is that life has to get so bad that it doesn't matter.
I like that.
Really, it's the crisis point of the re-ownership of the subconscious mind. You just literally get to a point where you're like, What's the point of being here even? And like nothing is satisfying me, so it doesn't matter whether they stay or go. And that's usually the point at which that giant cliff jump is more like jumping off of a little stone,
Yeah,
you know?
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, it'd be great if people could just trust, but I don't know anybody who can. I didn't manage it. I mean, did you manage it? If you managed to just trust that there would be better people on the other side, how the hell did you manage that?
I trust when okay, I resonate with both points. I trust when this is like 10 years ago. This when I first found out at the time about like, oh, success with women, and the biggest thing I got out of it is I have control over my life. I can work on who I am because I used to be extremely introverted, shy. So with that, I knew I was going to alienate some friends at the time because everyone always tries to hold you down. It's like crabs in a bucket. It's like you start going up. So I was like, you know what? I trust I'm going to meet other people on that level, that resonate with that identity. So I guess I kind of baby stepped my way there where I did have references of it at the time. And, but you are right with what made me make that big jump was going through that crisis there. So I guess it's a combination. Like the crisis was like, fuck it, enough's enough. And then there was that little bit too where it's like, trust that, again, you've proven it in the past, like you baby stepped your way there. There's no reason why it wouldn't happen again.
The best way to think about doing shadow work, if you're ready for that process, is that you're about to deep sea dive into uncharted territory. You have no idea what's going to be down there. When you make a deep dive, maybe you'll hit the bottom, but you have no idea how much farther it goes. You don't know how many worlds could exist down there. You don't know what creatures are there. You don't know. So coming back up, or I should say going in with any prior conception of what is there is a pretty bad idea. Number one. Number two, going down and then touching and trying to say whether that was a successful dive or not, also not a good idea. Because you don't know whether it was a good dive yet or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really, like that is the feeling. It starts to just be like, and so I should say also that, you know how like a world traveler, and this is a very tiny globe, might I remind you, but a world traveler would be like, you can't even imagine the amount of cultures, the amount of foods, the amount of bizarre stuff that you could see on this planet, just in one city, much less every single city in this whole world, right? Mm-hmm. The internal reality, let's call it the inner world of a person, is every bit as complex, every bit as unique, every bit as multifaceted. So it's like I've been doing this for how many years now? My God, I mean, this is literally my work, and every single time I do a dive into the subconscious, even though there are some places I may visit twice, it's like a whole other cavern that I have not even seen before. And it just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. I want you to think about somebody being born in a state of wholeness. And then remember, socialization causes that split. But if that split didn't occur, a person would stay in a state of wholeness as they progress through their life. If you're dealing with somebody who's got abundance issues in the adult reality, if you're dealing with somebody who can't get a girl or who's introverted in the adult reality, you can guarantee that it's linked to a trauma, because that is not the natural state of a human being. So if it's linked to a trauma, and the trauma is essentially the root or the causation, anything you try to do in the present moment, even if that includes altering your behavior so that you become a playboy, basically, it ignores the root that is underneath the entire behavior. So you can't actually experience yourself as an authentic expression of self. It's just a behavior I have chosen to use so that my life can look a certain way in the present moment. Mm-hmm. So this process that I designed takes people down into the shadow, down to find that trauma so that they can actually find resolution with that trauma. And what you notice is when you do that, the present moment shifts immediately. So like, for example, if you've got somebody who's a serious introvert who just cannot get girls no matter what because self-confidence is so low, we go back to the original trauma that taught that child, you know what, you're anything less than perfect right now. We undo the trauma, so then you watch in adult life that guy can suddenly talk to a girl for the first time when before he couldn't. But it's not a behavior he has to practice. So it's more of an authentic expression of self.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah, it's like becoming whole again, because it's true. It's like just the fact that you need a certain behavior to be, say, enough or complete or cool is reinforcing the assumption that you're not cool in the first place.
Exactly. Don't you love how it usually, I mean, I love slash hate the fact that all self-help techniques or self-shift or change techniques, they come with that horrible hook where it's just like, okay, the more I engage in this self-changing process, the more that aspect of me that felt not good enough to begin with just gets pummeled.
Yeah. No, it's true. There's so much focus on like getting from down here to up here instead of realizing like we're up here, but we're telling ourselves we're down here. And it's about getting rid of everything that's in the way.
Exactly, which is why I love I love this process that I'm releasing to the world, because basically at the very end you essentially find out that you were completely whole the whole time.
Exactly.
It was just an illusion.
Perfect.
So most of life is. So yeah, so there that is.
Perfect. Yeah, no, thanks again. I'll put a link to it here below if you're watching this. Highly, highly recommend checking it out. And as always, until next time.
So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a comment here below, as I personally read every single one myself. And if you're new to this channel, be sure to smash that subscribe button, share the video, tag a friend, you know the deal, and check out some of the other ones as well, as I post on here every single week on topics that range from business, self-actualization, spirituality, and so much more. So get on that now. And once again, thanks for watching.